How's it doing, people? We're back here. So once again, we're talking Luis Ortiz, um, Deontay Wilder, and once again, I truly believe this is going to be a very competitive fight in a lot of ways. One of the things that really kind of pops out at me right from the get go is what happens if Luis Ortiz um, hurts Deontay Wilder. And if he's able to hurt Deontay Wilder in the same fashion that he did in the first fight, I know that there's a part of Luis that probably eats him up every day when he thinks to himself, he let him off the hook. But you have to give a lot of credit to Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder was extremely, extremely hurt in that round. And for him to even be able to stand up and sustain the amount of punishment that Luis Ortiz was putting on him, it shows a next level heavyweight. There's not too many heavyweights in the past that have been able to come back from that amount of beating and still come out victorious like Deontay Wilder did. So, what does Luis Ortiz have to do differently in this fight in order to be successful in what could possibly be his final bid for a heavyweight championship against the current heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder? um, One thing is, I think Luis has to go back to what he knows he can do very well, and that is box. Luis Ortiz comes from a very talented group of fighters out of Cuba. A lot of people look at Luis Ortiz like he's this, like his name, King Kong. He's just this big puncher, but he's not. Luis Ortiz is actually a very talented boxer. He has a very educated jab along with other aspects of his boxing ability. I think if he takes a page out of what Tyson Fury did in his fight against Deontay Wilder and box Deontay, keep Deontay guessing. Even though he's the shorter man, keep the jab in Deontay's face. Make Deontay take that backward step. Those can be the possible advantages for Luis Ortiz. At that point, if he hurts Deontay Wilder, can't let him off the hook. At that point, he should choose his punches wisely. Don't just go in there crazy and throwing punches everywhere and stuff. I mean, the thing is if you go back and you look at that fight against Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz when he did hurt Deontay, the one thing that Ortiz should have done was the body. Everything that he was throwing towards Deontay Wilder in those moments was to the head. And I can understand, he hurt him to the head, so he figured that's what I'm going to do. But work the body, bring the hands down, gives you those open spots, those opportunities to the head. So whether or not that's going to happen or not, it's hard to say. Now, Luis Ortiz has already proven he's got the power to hurt Deontay. Now, does he got the power to put him down? A lot of people are saying, well, Deontay Wilder, was knocked down by this person. Let me tell you something right now. Fighters can get knocked down early in their career out of nervous energy, not being prepared, not being in the right spot at the right time, just not doing the basic fundamentals they were taught in the gym because they're so involved in the moment. And but when Deontay Wilder was put to the test, hurt against a man who is highly avoided, who has real heavyweight power, real heavyweight size, and a pedigree, an amateur boxing pedigree behind that, he passed the test. When you come back and you not only sustain that kind of punishment and you knock the man out, to you send a message. Tell me one heavyweight in recent history Has Tyson Fury done it? No. Tyson's won some good fights against some good fighters, but Tyson hasn't really put that stamp. Now, yeah, he was successful in his bid in the sense that he didn't get knocked out against Deontay Wilder. But nobody talks about what Tyson Fury did for the first 11 rounds. They only talk about what Deontay Wilder did to Tyson Fury in the 12th when he dropped him. That was the most dynamic, the most dramatic aspect of the entire fight. Now, in a, that's what you have to look about when you're looking at the Deontay Wilder Luis Ortiz fight. The fact that Ortiz hurt Wilder, but he survived. Wilder came back and knocked out Ortiz. That's dramatic. That's boxing. That's boxing 101 right there. And the thing is that in the situation right now that's going on with this whole monopoly shuffling of heavyweight champions, I know people are talking about the upcoming, and we're going to talk more about that tonight too, today, this morning, about the Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz fight coming up. But right now, I want to concentrate on the real heavyweight championship that's happening, and that's Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz. Joshua had his opportunity. He failed the test. Now, Joshua's going to have an opportunity, obviously, to come back and do what he's going to do, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But right now, what does Deontay Wilder have to do to beat Luis Ortiz? Beat Deontay Wilder. Deontay's gotten better and better, obviously working with famed amateur and former champion Mark Breland. He's got a very good jab. He knows how to dictate the range. He knows how to control the action within the ring when he's smart and he's on his game. But Deontay also has a tendency to get a little amateurish, and that has a lot to do with the fact that he doesn't have that extensive amateur background of guys like Luis Ortiz, and he started boxing at a later time in his life. But the advantage Deontay does have is the fact he's an athlete. He's a multiple sport athlete in high school. Um, he he's very athletic, and that's why he's able to adapt and evolve into the fighter that he is today. He's able to do things in the ring that you really shouldn't do, especially with a guy of his size. But at the end of the day, the one thing Deontay I feel can do to really, really set the tone, prove to the world he is who he is, and that's the heavyweight champion of the world, is to be smart. Fight smart from round one. Don't go in there and feel like you got to prove anything to anybody. Control the distance. Put Luis Ortiz in the positions where you can land that big right hand. Don't go in there throwing wild bombs, because I'll tell you right now, if Ortiz camp is thinking the way I'm thinking, I'm looking for Deontay to do that. I'm looking for him to come in wild with this reckless abandonment where he throws these wild punches, and I'm going to counter him. I'm going to put him in a vulnerable situation. And believe me, if Luis Ortiz drops Deontay Wilder, I can't say for sure, but this fight can turn out differently. Because at that point, Deontay is going to have to somehow calculate within his mind, what do I do now? I just got dropped. Not only to myself, but I just got dropped on national television, pay-per-view. So the point is, Ortiz knows this. Deontay knows this. So Deontay's advantage is he has to fight smart. And he has been putting on weight, but in order for Deontay to continue to be successful against, especially some of these guys that are coming up in the heavyweight division, he cannot go into these fights at 117. At 217 pounds. It's not gonna work. And we'll touch on that with the Andy Ruiz and what I think the big mistake they made in their camp. But so right now, Deontay has to go in there, think about the range, keep Ortiz at a distance because he is a shorter man. Deontay has shown the ability to be able to fight close, but I wouldn't take that risk. Why? With his size, his athleticism, he doesn't need to do that. Now, I'm not saying get into a boxing match with Luis Ortiz, but Deontay Wilder's a better boxer than he gives himself credit for. I think sometimes, when he's done that, he's gone in there and he's shown that, especially working with a guy like Mark Breland. You know, Breland was a guy who in the amateurs, was 110 and one as an amateur and a gold medalist. The man knows boxing. So my prediction for this fight is, I think, because of the fact they both have felt each other's power, meaning Deontay was hurt by Luis Ortiz. Ortiz was ultimately stopped by Deontay Wilder. They both are fully aware of the power that each one of them possess and that they both have the ability to hurt the other fighter. I don't see this fight starting off as a barn burner. I don't see this from round one, them dropping bombs on each other. I think they're both going to come in very, very controlled, knowing they're going to have to pick and choose their spots. So for the first possibly one, two, maybe even 3 rounds, I see it being a little bit of a chess match. And then at some point, and I think it's honestly going to start with Ortiz. I know Deontay is feeling good coming off fights like what he did against uh, Dominic Brazil, which is a complete mismatch. And Deontay went in there, did exactly what he could do. Dominic Brazil was there for the taking. Don't get me wrong, Dominic is he's a solid fighter, and he did a much better job against Anthony Joshua. The thing is Deontay Wilder went in there and did exactly what he was supposed to do. Dominic was standing there and he just went in and he dropped the right hand on him. And unfortunately, there's nobody in the heavyweight division that possesses the power that Deontay Wilder possesses right now. Nobody. Anybody who thinks that Anthony Joshua, Andy Ruiz, Tyson Fury, I don't care who it is, none of them. He drops that right hand on you, it's done. So, going into this fight, like I said, I think it's going to be Ortiz who's going to try to initiate the bomb squad action. He's going to go in there and try to hopefully hurt Deontay. He might even try to catch Deontay cold within the first couple rounds if he thinks Deontay is a little passive. But because I'll tell you right now, there's going to be no passiveness in Luis Ortiz. He's a guy who's going to go out on his shield. He knows Deontay has the ability to stop him. He knows Deontay has the ability probably to knock him out in the first round. But Luis Ortiz is going to go in there with that mindset. It's either, win or die. Now, Deontay, he's got a little bit more to lose in the sense that he's a heavyweight champ. He not only wants to win this fight, he wants to look controlled, but I think most of all, Deontay wants to look disciplined. I think he wants to show he's a better fighter than people give him credit for. I know a lot of people from, that are deters of Deontay Wilder say, well, he's still very amateurish, he gets wild, he does this, he does that. I will agree. But at the end of the day, once again, I'm going to say his athleticism helps him overcome these flaws. And if Deontay comes in disciplined and listening to his corner and controls Luis Ortiz and shows the ability to hit and not get hit, because that's another thing that Deontay had, he's getting better at it. We didn't really get an opportunity to see too much against Brazil because, he just completely walked over Brazil. But his ability of him getting hit, he hasn't shown the greatest defense. And he got hit a lot against both Tyson Fury and against Luis Ortiz. So if he comes in and if he shows that his skills are evolving into more of a pure boxer puncher, where he's got the ability to go in there and be elusive and do the things that you're supposed to do in the ring, rather than just be, an Arturo Gatti, and nothing against Arturo Gatti. I love the guy, blood and guts, but a guy who just goes in there and, drops bombs and then takes bombs, drops bombs, takes bombs. People love that kind of fighting, but you're not going to sustain a long career doing that. And Deontay understands that. And especially at his age, he's still a young guy, but, the clock's ticking. So the opportunities are out there, but he's got to pass this test. And that's the one thing I like about Deontay Wilder right now. I don't hear him saying he's not focusing on anybody else in boxing right now. Not Andy Reese, not Anthony Joshua, or even Tyson Fury. I know there's been some talk about Tyson Fury, and that fight will happen in, 2020 or 2021 or who knows when. But right now, he knows he's got a big test. And probably the most dangerous guy in the heavyweight division next to him in Ortiz. You know, I don't see. I mean, to me personally, I look at the heavyweight division and I know there's some good fighters and some guys coming up. But who honestly is as dangerous as Luis Ortiz right now in boxing other than Deontay Wilder? You can't say Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, has his own mountain he has to climb in Andy Reese in a bit. You look at some of the other guys coming out of the UK. Derek Chisora? No. Dillian White? No. These guys have failed the test. They both failed the test against Anthony Joshua. So if you wanna put, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, you take Derek Chisora, you take Dillian White, and you put them in that same basket with Anthony Joshua that got beat by Andy Reese. And that means Andy Reese would do the same thing to those guys. Now I know styles make fights and fights can always be different. But I'm going to tell you something right now. I know there's been a lot of talk about Deontay Wilder avoiding guys like Dillian White and fighting who they called old man Luis Ortiz. Anybody who really knows boxing looks at it. You tell me you put Dillian White in the ring with Luis Ortiz, which I think would be a great fight for as long as it lasted, until Luis Ortiz invokes his power, his punching power on Dillian White. Because Anthony Joshua doesn't hit as hard as Luis Ortiz. And the thing is that these guys have already failed that test against who I think is not a massive puncher in Anthony Joshua. Joshua was a big puncher. He's a bigger puncher than Andy Reese. He's a bigger puncher than Dillian White and Derek Chisora, but he's not a bigger puncher than Deontay Wilder or Luis Ortiz. And that's the difference. So right now, they're in a situation where, there's all these fighters, but who's really the threat? So I just wish people would wake up sometimes and say, this is a fight. This is the chance where you got two guys who actually have an equal chance of beating each other. And I know we got Anthony Joshua and Andy Reese coming up here. And a lot of people are thinking that Andy Reese is going to go in there and do the same thing again. We'll see, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so right now, my prediction is Deontay Wilder is going to be Deontay Wilder. Is this fight going to end early? Is it going to be another situation like what happened with Stavern, where Stavern gave Deontay a very competitive fight in the first fight, and then the second fight, Deontay Wilder just completely went in there, overwhelmed him, and knocked him out in the first round? No. Because Bermese Stavern is not Luis Ortiz. Bermese Stavern was not prepared for that fight. Bermese Stavern didn't even look like he even trained for the fight. Or maybe he was just way too overconfident. Luis Ortiz is focused on Deontay Wilder. And Deontay Wilder's focused on Luis Ortiz. And these are two guys, don't get me wrong. People can say whatever they want. I know there's been talk about Luis Ortiz saying things about Deontay Wilder and Deontay Wilder saying things about Luis Ortiz. These guys respect each other. I'm not going to say they're buddies, but they are friends. They are two guys that respect each other, but they got a job to do. And the job starts this Saturday. So do yourself a favor. Make sure you're tuning into this fight. It's going to be a really good fight. I really feel it's a, I have to swing the pendulum towards Deontay as far as the advantage, just based on his overall athleticism, the fact that he beat Ortiz before, and I'm thinking he's going to be properly prepared for this. But there's always that if factor, especially in the heavyweight division. where it takes one punch. And with guys with power like Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz, they get in that fast. So my prediction, my enter the ring prediction, and I hate to do this, but I'm gonna go with Deontay Wilder, and I'm gonna say it's gonna be a stoppage around the same time. I'm saying maybe about the, you know, eighth, ninth round, if that. But I also have this very eerie feeling that Deontay is gonna get dropped. I think I think Ortiz is going to knock Deontay down. I think he's going to be the first to really do it in front of the public's eyes. I know people go back and look at that old fight against, that Harold and these other ones where I'm talking about a real knockdown. And that's going to be the test. Not what Deontay absorbed the last fight. I just got this feeling that Ortiz he's looking at some of the flaws, and when you're a fighter at Deontay's level, you know, you can't expect he's going to change so much in a short amount of time. He's still going to make mistakes. And a guy like Ortiz just might be able to take advantage of him and stuff. So, I mean, it just depends. You know, it was like I remember we were we'd done an interview with oh, by the way, I'm wearing my gladiator John Molina shirt today. um, John Molina said this one time, talked about his experience working with trainers, and he was talking about with his trainers, his current trainer that he was with, the great Robert Alcazar, and he said how a trainer, no matter what level, they can help him prepare for a fight, but they can't teach him to fight because at this point in his career, he already knows how to fight. He knows what he needs to do. It's just about making sure everything is where it needs to be. And if you've got a good support system and a good trainer, a guy like Robert Alcazar, who, when you're in those crucial moments, you know, that's what you need. And now you're gonna have to look at the corners of both fighters too, and what they're gonna be able to do. So once again, I'm gonna take Deontay Wilder, possibly ninth, 10th round stoppage. But I do think there's going to be a moment there where Luis Ortiz is going to be a little successful. But like I said, we'll see about that. So let's talk. What time is it? Let's see. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk Anthony Joshua, um, Andy Reese. Another good, very, very, very interesting matchup. I will say something though. I really truly believe that this fight's going to have, and I know we've been talking about it a few times, but this fight is definitely going to have a little bit different of an outcome than most people think. I think a lot of people are feeling that Andy Reese coming into this fight has all of this momentum based on the fact that I've heard a few people say this, and it just really drives me nuts. Andy Reese did not steamroll Anthony Joshua. I don't feel that Joshua was properly prepared for this fight. I think Joshua, with all of the hoopla and the glamour of Madison Square Gardens and his first time fighting in the United States, he put a lot on his shoulders. And rather than Joshua coming into this fight and thinking to himself, um, I really need to buckle down. And the one test that Joshua didn't pass was to himself by properly preparing himself mentally for this fight, the fight with Andy Reese. When he dropped Reese, he kind of had this almost kind of like narcissistic, borderline lethargic way that he engaged Reese after the knockdown. Not a well schooled former gold medalist style. And that's what Joshua needs to go back to. He needs to realize he's got a better pedigree. He's a better fighter than he gives himself credit for. He needs to stop believing all of the talk. And I've said it before, be Clubber Lane. Get in the basement. Get in that dirty, sweaty pit of hell. Go back to basics. Go back to being a fighter. Stop worrying about what social media is saying. Stop worrying about the world's saying. Stop worrying about what Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury or even Andy Ruiz. You got an opportunity here, which could be honestly, I'm not going to say it's to be his final opportunity, but if Anthony Joshua doesn't perform well and really put himself back where he needs to be in the heavyweight picture by defeating Andy Ruiz, I don't know. I don't know what happens at that point. I don't know what kind of discussions guys like Eddie Hearn will have with Anthony Joshua or his camp, because there will be no, $100 million fights against Deontay Wilder. I think those are dead anyways. Now, if I was Anthony Joshua, and this is just me, this is what I would do. I would go back and watch a fight from the past. And that fight was Lennox Lewis versus Hasim Rahman. When Hasim Rahman beat Lennox Lewis, and we talked about this before, in South Africa, Lewis was overconfident. He didn't train properly, whatever the case. That's all hair-shaped bullshit. Hasim Rahman went in there and caught Lewis, knocked him out, and basically showed Lewis, you're not as good as you think you are. You're still a man. And that was the thing that happened with Anthony Joshua. He was starting to think he was superhuman. He was starting to think that all you had to do was walk in the ring and these guys would buckle and fold. Well, the unfortunate thing was he wasn't fighting Dillian White, who stood in front of him. He wasn't fighting Joseph Parker, that stood in front of him. He fought Andy Ruiz, an unconventional, a little unorthodox, but well-schooled sharpshooter. And what I mean by sharpshooter is, if you look at the way Andy Ruiz throws his punches, he throws very sharp, complete combinations with pop. Now, I'm not going to say that Andy Ruiz is this, I know his moniker is the Destroyer. He's not a destroyer. He's not a destroyer in the sense of a Deontay Wilder or even a Luis Ortiz. But he's got enough. But I think a lot of why he was able to put Anthony Joshua in the position that he was able to was Anthony Joshua, when he got knocked down, you saw it in his face. It was almost kind of like Samson getting his hair cut off. He just, all the power, all the focus, all the confidence that he had was still on the floor, was still on that mat, even though he got up. He didn't do what Sean Porter did when Sean Porter got knocked down by Errol Spence, got up and looked at Errol Spence across the ring and went, come on, man, let's do this. I've been in that situation before. Let's do this. I'm not over. I'm not out yet. But he didn't. He looked at the media. He probably looked at Eddie Hearn. He looked at his core. What he should have done was got up and looked right at Andy Ruiz and said, you know what, dude? Good punch. Now let's go. I dropped you once. You dropped me once. Let's see who goes down for the third. He didn't do that. Anthony Joshua has to remember who he is. At the end of the day, he's a fighter. And I hate to say it, he's got to hopefully come into this fight with that heart. Now, if he does the reason I said for him to watch the Lennox Lewis fight, if you watch the rematch with Hasim Rahman, Lennox Lewis came into this fight angry. I mean, you could see it from the lead up to the fight with the interviews, which he did very little, like Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua's kind of been off the radar because I really feel he's focusing and he's really barreling down. He understands the severity and the importance of this bout coming up. And the thing is, Lennox Lewis had made a comment, I remember, about Hasim Rahman. Rahman had done an interview and made some comments, and he had this this smirk, this smile, almost kind of like, I'll do it again. That's what Lennox Lewis wanted to do. When Lennox Lewis says, I'm going to knock Hasim Rahman out, it wasn't about knocking Hasim Rahman out. It was about changing Hasim Rahman's view of Lennox Lewis. And he did that. When he knocked Hasim Rahman down, you saw Lewis lean over and he had this look, this snarl, like, like you're done. I'm back. That's what Anthony Joshua has to do. Anthony Joshua has to not only beat a close 12 controversial 12 round decision will do nothing for Anthony Joshua, but get him back his belts, which will be absolutely meaningless in the world and in the eyes of true boxing fans. The casual fans, they'll love it. They'll jump on the message boards and they'll jump on the Twitter feeds and be, oh, the man's back, the king's back. Bullshit. He needs to go in there and knock Andy Ruiz out in a more devastating fashion than he lost to. He needs to not only beat Ruiz, he needs to take his confidence and his heart away. He needs to make Ruiz look in that camera as he's picking his body up off the ground with that hopeless look and say, he's a beaten fighter. And he got beat by a better fighter. Now, does Joshua have that ability to do that? Absolutely. He's already proven he could beat Ruiz. Knock down Ruiz. Now he has to prove he could beat him. And it all starts with himself. And I'm not taking nothing away from Andy Ruiz. I think Andy did an outstanding job. He did exactly what he knew he had to do. He turned it into a goddamn street fight. It's just like if Andy Ruiz was in a Taco Bell parking lot and he was fighting against some bigger guy than him and he knocked him down once. You think Andy Ruiz is going to let up? Hell no. He went right at him and knocked him down again. Then knocked him down again. That's what Andy Ruiz has to do again. But, and this is the big but, I think Andy Ruiz has a major hurdle to jump. And that is Andy Ruiz changed way too much. I said it in one of our last live streams. If you have the recipe for success, meaning you went into a fight and you won the fight, however you won it, the mental set that you were in, the physical aspect that you were in, whatever your corner told you, however the public perceived you, the color socks you were wearing, the color trunks you were wearing, I don't care, what you ate the day before, how many times you went to the bathroom, did you whatever, don't break the routine. I know it sounds superstitious, but I hate to tell you, like football players, boxers are very superstitious. You talk to any real boxer and he'll tell you. And Andy changed everything. He went from being what I feel this hungry guy who had a few opportunities, got catapulted into this opportunity because of what happened with Big Baby Miller, and he did what he was supposed to. He was the Chicano Rocky, in a sense. But, like Rocky, when Rocky won it, if you remember, in Rocky 3, Rocky got a little glitz and glamoury. Rocky went out and started spending money. Rocky went and got plastic surgery. Rocky transformed himself into what he felt he should be for the public and not for who she'd be in the ring. And that's what I think Andy Ruiz did. This drastic weight loss tells me if you're losing weight at that rate, you're not doing it the right way. He's not doing it by sparring. Running can be part of it, is cardiovascular and stuff, which is good. But I think it's being done more for vanity. I said it before. I think Andy Ruiz wants to, if he's successful against Joshua, he wants to be able to grace GQ, in his suit, the stylish, heavyweight champ. He wants to do all the things that Joshua had the advantage to do. He wants to be that base. I know a lot of people gave Andy Reese a lot of issues and stuff about his body weight and the way, he physically looked. If it's a personal thing, if he's been called a fat boy his entire life and he's just tired of it and stuff, I just think he chose the wrong time to make a change. Do that when you're fighting against, when you've already had 2 or 3 title defenses and you're fighting against, let's say, Derek Chisora or, whoever. Do that when you don't have this kind of focus, because I'm going to tell you something right now. That's what everybody's going to talk about. That's the commentators are going to talk about. They're going to say, wow, we see a huge difference in Andy Reese. He's going to look fast. But speed can only get you so far. And it's not like Joshua doesn't have speed. And Joshua carries 256 pounds. So Andy doesn't understand is that when Joshua landed some of those big shots, especially to the body early in that fight, he had some little bit of cushion. Not going to have it anymore. And Joshua's ended guys with body shots. And I think Andy's going to realize real early in this fight he made a mistake. And I'm not saying that you can't transform yourself into a more healthier version of who you should be, but you do it in progression. You don't just drastically do it, especially the biggest opportunity. And people are going to say, well, his biggest opportunity is when he win the title. Yeah. No. His biggest opportunity is the fight in Dubai. Because he wins that fight, he tells the world, I'm the heavyweight champ. Now there's no question that I belong here. I don't want to hear that Joshua was starstruck or Joshua wasn't mentally prepared or Joshua had this going. I don't care. I beat him twice. I stopped him twice. I'm the heavyweight champ. Now the books open up. He's not going to be the A side like his people have talked about against guys like Deontay Wilder or against Tyson Fury. It's not going to happen. And is Anthony Reese going to be successful against either one of those guys? I highly doubt it. Because the difference between Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, and Tyson Fury is the mental aspect. Tyson Fury goes into a fight knowing he's a heavyweight champ. Deontay Wilder goes into a fight knowing not only he's a heavyweight champ, but he's got the ability to knock you out. If anybody thinks that Andy Reese could stand there in front of Deontay Wilder and take that right hand, go watch MMA. Go, well, I don't know. I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Andy Reese will never be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It will take an act of God. I'm sorry. He doesn't have the physical presence to beat these other guys. He'll be successful. I mean, he can get lucky. Anything can happen in boxing. But right now, he's got a huge mountain to climb in Anthony Joshua. Because if he thinks he's going to go in there and do what he did last time, his punches alone with the weight loss are not going to be as effective on Anthony Joshua. And people are going to be like, well, weight isn't always a factor. Oh, really? I'm going to tell you how it is. Let's look at the lighter weights. Okay? Things like, people talk about, a person being a weight bully or this or that or this or that. If you look at like Nonito Donaire in his last fight against Inoue, the reason why Donaire was successful, even though he lost a fight, and it was a very competitive fight, I thought it was an amazing fight actually, and nothing against either one of them. And I take my hat off to Nonito for putting on an amazing performance. But Nonito came back down to the weight that he was used to, that his body was accustomed to, that he was comfortable at, where he was powerful. The same thing goes the other way. There's some fighters that can go from a lighter weight, be moderately successful, move up, and their body evolves into this more power. You add 4 pounds, 5 pounds, and all of a sudden they're turning into a power puncher. Well, Andy Reese dropping the weight isn't going to help his power punching. I'm not saying that you necessarily have to be a heavy guy to be a power puncher. I was always a big hitter when I was fighting. And it had nothing to do with weight. It had to do with balance and just how I threw punch. Andy Reese has that ability, but I'm gonna tell you right now, he's gonna find out when he hits Joshua with some of these punches, and Joshua doesn't respond the way he did last time, and he's gonna start questioning things. Okay, so I mean, that's gonna be. I just think that's a big mistake. The fact that Andy, every time I look at things, I see him. He's on social media with his mansion and his cars and his parties. I hope he enjoyed it, and I wish him the best. But if Anthony Joshua goes in there and knocks Andy Ruiz out the way Evander Holyfield knocked out Buster Douglas to prove that he didn't belong there, we'll see what happens to Andy Ruiz. But like I said, I wish them both the best. We got about another 10 minutes, and like I said, I mean these are just my opinions. I could be completely wrong. I could be back here on Monday, and you guys could be like, "Oh, you didn't even know what the hell you were talking about." Andy Reese just walked over him, and I'm sorry, I mean, Deontay Wilder walked over Ortiz, and then and in December we could talk about when Andy Reese destroys Anthony Joshua. But I don't know. But I just don't think it's going to happen that way. Now I want to talk about something real quick in the last 10 minutes that's been becoming a little bit. It's been irking me, and it's a little bit of a pet peeve. I know there's a lot of people out there that report on boxing. They start their channels, boxing, live news or whatever the hell you want to call yourself, just like us here at Enter the Ring. Okay? I'm not doing this for subscribe. You want to subscribe to our page? Fine. If not, you want to tell me, hey, you guys are a bunch of idiots, you don't know what you're talking about, that's fine. But I'll see you at the fights. Because I'm a real fight fan, because I'm a former fighter, like me and my brother. We have a lot of people that we know in the fight game. And we do this because, like anything, it's just like people who are watching, media, the news today and stuff, and they don't have the opportunity really. I mean, they'll complain to their family, oh, I hate the people when the news is always talking about this stuff, and they can't do anything about it. Well, this is a way for me and my brother to kind of do something about it. So the other day, I was scrolling through my phone, and I see this, and I'm not even going to mention the person's channel because it's not worth their mentioning. But they basically had put out there that Sergey Kovalev had pretty much admitted that it was a fixed fight against Canelo. So then I thought, okay, this is interesting. So I watched it, a little bit of it. I got a little bit into it, and I saw where there was a transcript where, the guys saying this stuff what Sergey said. Sergey never once said that it was a fixed fight. Sergey talked about, advantages, the money that he made, blah, blah, whatever. And then this guy had a so-called expert that was next to him. I don't even know who he was. Neither one of them looked like they've ever been in the ring in their entire life. And they're basically breaking this down how this is what Sergey said. Let me tell you something right now, guys. When you have to manipulate the public in order to get viewership, you're a joke. Regardless if you want to think so or not, everybody, when you're out reporting like I am right now, it doesn't matter if you have a 4-year degree in journalism, you're a journalist. So you're either going to be the source, or if you're just going to be some, hack job, then go be like the National Enquirer and just be fake news and put right on the bottom, not accurate. Because the bottom line is, what these people don't understand is that at some point, now, if I was Golden Boy and Canelo's team, this is what I would do. I would contact these guys. And I'd say, you know what? Not only do I want that torn down, but I'd banish these guys from ever walking into a boxing event or ever even uttering Canelo or anybody else within Golden Boy's banner again. You have to be very careful, guys, what you guys put out there and what you say. Because at some point, you might get called out on it. It's not uncommon. I've seen it happen before. Guy goes out and talks a lot of crap, He thinks he can hide behind his YouTube channel. And then one day he's at a gym or one day he's at an event. And guess what? Guess who walks up? That fighter that he was talking about. And then what does he say? The thing is, guys, what this guy was saying was completely inaccurate. I know that a lot of people are finding it hard to accept Canelo beating Kovalev. Whether it was Kovalev getting old, They think it's fixed. They think that. Let me tell you something. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the man lost. And unless the man comes out and says, oh, yeah, it was fixed. But I'm going to tell you the one thing that tells me it wasn't fixed. When Canelo landed that big punch that put Sergey to sleep. Canelo didn't automatically jump on the ring apron and say, look at me, look at me. There was obvious and direct concern for Sergey's well-being. Once he knew Sergey was okay, he accepted his accolades. But here's the thing is, don't go out there and put a thing out there. It's just like when somebody goes out there and goes, oh, we'll show you how to fix your computer in 2 easy steps. And you go on this YouTube channel, it says nothing about it. And they end up leading you into some other bullshit. People know when they go in there look for free fights. Free live stream. You go on it, and next thing you know, you're on some paid service. Listen, guys, be ethical. That's all I ask. Because all you're doing is hurting the boxing game. And we love boxing. If you truly love boxing, do good by boxing. Don't put words in people's mouths. Because it may not be a guy like Canelo that you have to face and answer for. Looking at this guy who was talking, who was probably about 105 pounds soaking wet, I would hate for him to have to run into the crusher. And have the crusher go, so I hear you said that I fixed the fight. That's on you then at that point. Well, I want to say thank you everybody who viewed today and stuff. And once again, we'll be back again a couple days. Me and my brother, Mighty Mike. We're going to talk more about the Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz fight. And we would just tell everybody, support boxing. Remember boxers, like my brother says, they're the salt of the earth. Remember the ones who are no longer here. Remember the ones who are struggling. And just because some of them lose in the ring, don't give up on them. And that message right there, that one goes out to Romero Duno, the Filipino kid who lost to Ryan Garcia. I'm going to say it again, man. Keep your head up. You did a great job. You'll be back. And with that coming to like this, check out our sponsors too. Battleware, we Stablemate, and our brand new segment that's going to be coming on with new merchandise, Boxing Pinoy. So we'll be talking soon once again. For Enter the Ring, my brother Mighty Mike, who's getting some rest. I'm AJ Rage. Have a wonderful night. Well, wonderful morning, wonderful day. And, enjoy the fight this Saturday. Deontay Wilder, Luis Ortiz.